High court liberals prevail. A major legal challenge to Obamacare is rejected. Another suspected accomplice, a veteran guard implicated in the brazen New York prison escape. It's not easy being Catholic. As the Fortnight for Freedom begins, we explore the history of Catholic bias in America. And good and faithful servant. She was no Mother Teresa, but this sister came closer to it than anyone. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, June 25th, 2015. Good evening from Washington. We thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. The Supreme Court upholds the nationwide tax subsidies under President Obama's health care overhaul. The 6-3 ruling means subsidies that millions of people now receive don't depend on where they live. This is the second major legal victory for the president's most significant domestic agenda. Chief Justice John Roberts, again, as he did 3 years ago, sided with liberal colleagues on the court in support of the law.
It's a monumental victory of tremendous significance because it means that the Affordable Care Act is now essentially a permanent part of America's health care system, and it means the help that's already been provided will now be extended to many more.
Obamacare opponents vow to keep fighting, saying the law was badly written and hastily passed.
It means that we have to work to repeal the law. It just shows how much work that we have to do, but it has to happen in Congress.
Justice Antonin Scalia, in dissent, says the court is making it clear that, quote, it favors some laws over others. Reaction to the ruling ranges from stunned disappointment to vindication. Our chief White House correspondent, Susanne LaFrankie, has more tonight.
Brian, the Affordable Care Act has been an extremely divisive issue here in Washington. Today, President Obama said that the court's affirmation of the health care law is a win for all Americans. In recent weeks, he's been publicly lobbying the Supreme Court, which is unusual for a president, even saying they should never have taken up the case. Calling it a good day in America, the president claimed victory in the Rose Garden.
After multiple challenges to this law before the Supreme Court, the Affordable Care Act is here to stay.
Yes, we can. Yes, we did.
Obama cast the ruling as historic, saying the law has now been woven into the fabric of America.
This has never been a government takeover of health care, despite cries to the contrary. This reform remains what it's always been, a set of fairer rules and tougher protections that have made health care in America more affordable, more attainable.
Since it was signed into law over 5 years ago, Republicans have voted more than 50 times to undo the act. Today, they vow to continue efforts to repeal it.
It's raising costs for American families. It's raising costs for small businesses. And it's just fundamentally broken.
This doesn't mean that Obamacare is fixed. It means that it's going to continue until somebody finds a better way.
Today's court ruling was Obama's second big win of the week. The court also preserved a key tool the administration uses to fight housing bias. Brian.
Susanne LaFrankie at the White House. Thank you. James Capretta, Senior Fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center, is with us, along with Jennifer Marshall, Vice President for the Institute for Family, Community, and Opportunity at the Heritage Foundation. How significant is this ruling? Is Obamacare here to stay, as the president says?
No, I don't think it is. This decision is a real disappointment for the rule of law because the administration was going beyond what the law authorized, and the court did not rein them in today. But this decision does nothing to change the fact that this law is unworkable, unaffordable, and unpopular, and it's going to take repealing it to fix it, and that's going to be up to Congress.
Jim, is a repeal even possible?
Well, you'd have to have new governance in Washington, obviously, so a lot depends on the 2016 presidential election. If someone runs a campaign in 2016 on repeal and replacement of it and they win, sure, it's possible that something very different could be put in place in 2017 and beyond. The ruling today, though, makes it very clear nothing's going to change while President Obama is in office.
You have researched alternatives to this. Is there a viable alternative? Is there something that can replace this and be better?
Sure, I do think so. There's a plan that was introduced by Senators Richard Burr and Orrin Hatch in the Senate and Congressman Fred Upton in the House. It's a very good plan. It would provide secure insurance for everybody in America without the very heavy governmental process that's part of Obamacare.
I want to look at a quote from the dissenting opinion from Justice Scalia. He writes, "The High Court rewrites the law to make tax credits available everywhere. We should start calling this law SCOTUS care." So is the High Court, is the Supreme Court interpreting the law, or is it rewriting the law?
Well, in this case, they have failed to stop the administration from going beyond the bounds of the law. And that's a problem, I think, for the rule of law, and not a good signal across issues that we're concerned about.
Basically, the justices that ruled in favor of this ruling said that, you know, the Congress intended for everyone to get these subsidies. Is that clear in the language?
Well, I think that was a big dispute. I don't think it actually was clear in the language. They are looking at what people are saying about the law, what the congressmen are saying. Oh, this is what we intended. I think even Chief Justice's opinion makes it clear he was sort of taking a lot of that into account. Hey, this is what they intended to do. It's close enough in terms of the statute to actually allow this to continue on.
Too important a decision to go on something so thin. There's a huge decision that we're waiting on, Jen, in regards to the possible redefinition of marriage.
Yes, we may see this tomorrow or the final day on Monday. And what's at stake is whether states will be free to make marriage policy that reflects the truth that marriage is the union of a man and a woman. And we hope and pray that the court will respect that authority of the American people to make marriage policy. It's very critical, and it's critical for our future of being free to speak and to act consistent with that truth about marriage as well.
So you think we could see that ruling as early as tomorrow?
We may see it tomorrow, or the final day being Monday for decisions.
Certainly by the end of the month. All right, Jennifer Marshall and Jim Capretta, thank you both for being with us.
Thank you.
Some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. Family, friends, and a devoted church community say goodbye to two victims of last week's Charleston, South Carolina shooting. Mourners attend today's funeral service for 70-year-old retiree Ethel Lance. She was one of the 9 people gunned down at Emmanuel AME Church last Wednesday night. Reverend Sharonda Coleman Singleton was also buried today. Her son describes her as a God-fearing woman who loved everybody with all her heart. Bishop Harry Jackson is with us. He's with the Reconciled Church Initiative. That's a group working to heal the racial divide. And you are on your way to Charleston, South Carolina, right?
I am. I believe it's important for us to show solidarity, and this could be a landmark event that turns the tide of racial division in America for us.
You'll be attending the funeral of Pastor Pinckney?
I will be, yes, and we'll be meeting with folks and praying that this begins a movement to bring reconciliation and healing.
There's been no violence in reaction to this tragedy in Charleston or anywhere, as that matter. What do you think made the difference here?
Well, I think mostly it's been the prayer of individual people and the outpouring of love. I think Americans have said we want to step up and prove that we're not the kind of place that Mr. Roof wanted America to be, and we're not going to have violence as a response and reaction to an act of terrorism, in a sense.
Much like we saw years ago in the Amish school shooting, immediately, the families of the victims came forward and forgave this suspect at a court hearing. Did that surprise you?
No, it didn't surprise me. If we look back to the original civil rights movement, it's not normal for people without faith, but we are at our best as Christians when we're under pressure. And this is classic Christian crunch time, if you would, where kindness and goodness and love rule.
As Christians, as people who go to church, who attend Bible studies,
yes,
many of us are going, what on earth can we do? We're just shocked by this. What do you think we can do and perhaps learn from this tragedy?
Well, I think we got to make a personal commitment to keep this reconciliation tone and a tone of love moving. And we have in the Reconciled Church movement an emphasis this next year on criminal justice reform as one of the ways of healing the racial divide. I think you pick an area like that, or you pick an area of reaching out to the poor, or you pick an area like education, and you say, my mission this year is to express love to people that don't look like me through positive Christian action. I think that's what we need to do. We got to do something in the name of Jesus.
God willing, some good will come out of something that was so horrible. Bishop Harry Jackson, thank you for sharing with us tonight.
Thank you, Brian.
And a Kansas judge blocks a new state law banning dismemberment abortion. A district court ordered a stay while he considers a lawsuit filed by 2 abortion providers. The new law, hailed by pro-lifers, was supposed to take effect July 1st. The ban was the first of its kind in the nation and considered model legislation for the pro-life movement. Another person, a prison worker, now facing charges in connection with the New York prison escape. Gene Palmer is accused of loaning the escaped killer's tools and tampering with evidence. 57-year-old veteran prison guard Gene Palmer is out on bond and is expected to plead not guilty. He's charged with promoting dangerous prison contraband, tampering with evidence, and official misconduct. The guard allegedly carried frozen hamburger meat embedded with smuggled tools to the escapees Richard Matt and David Sweat. Officials say Palmer, who worked in the cell block that housed the 2 convicts, acted at the request of fellow prison employee Joyce Mitchell. She allegedly hid the tools in the meat and brought it into the prison. Palmer's lawyer says his client was unaware there were hacksaw blades and drill bits inside that meat. The prosecution says he failed to screen the meat through a metal detector, violating prison policy.
He was conned by Joyce Mitchell. She duped him. He knows that he made a mistake and that he shouldn't have done what he did.
Police searching Palmer's home found tools officials say the guard gave to at least one of the prisoners, including a screwdriver and a wrench.
There is some information that he allowed them to go into the back of the cells and in the catwalk area and fix the breakers that were there. And it was to help fix the breakers so they could use their hot plates to cook their food. That catwalk area was Matt and Sweat's escape path. Palmer tells investigators he supervised the prisoners doing the work and took the tools back before the end of his shift. And we learned just this afternoon that a Catholic camp run by the Diocese of Augsburg near the search site won't start camp on Sunday out of concern for the safety of the children. Well, the first World Meeting of Families in the United States is coming together. Philadelphia church officials say they're confident about preparations now in the 3-month home stretch. A delegation from Philadelphia wrapped up a 4-day planning meeting in Rome with a news conference today. Archbishop Charles Chaput says the gathering is an opportunity for people of all faiths to strengthen the sacred bonds of family. He also says 6,000 volunteers are lined up and the bulk of the fundraising is done.
In terms of fundraising, we've been very blessed. We have more than $30 million of the $45 million, so we're more than halfway.
The Archbishop was asked today if gay families are welcome to come.
Certainly people who have experienced same-sex attraction are certainly welcome like anybody else. We don't want to provide a platform at the meeting for people to lobby for positions contrary to the life of our church.
Pope Francis celebrates the closing Mass for the World Meeting of Families this September in Philadelphia. Bishop John McIntyre, the auxiliary for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, with us from Rome. We know you've had several busy days there with Archbishop Chaput and the delegation from Philadelphia. Can you share a little bit about the pastoral issues that the World Meeting of Families will address?
When we planned out the programming and the content for the 4-day Congress of the World Meeting of Families, we strove, of course, to be faithful to the teaching of Christ and the Church on marriage and family, and to do programming that would allow us to shed the light of Christ, of the gospel, on all kinds of different realities or situations that people, married people and families find themselves living in. So, for example, there'll be a talk on helping parents understand that they are the first catechists in terms of handing on the faith to their children, helping them to understand more profoundly that the family is a school of virtue. There'll be a talk entitled The ABCs of Finances. Often that can be a source of, tension in a marriage or a family when finances aren't going well or there's a disagreement. And then there'll be a whole other host of situations and issues that will be addressed. I'm an immigrant and my family is back in my home country in Mexico dealing with that reality. I have a son who's incarcerated. There'll be a talk on the teaching of Paul VI in Humanae Vitae, that prophetic teaching of Paul VI, inviting couples to be faithful to each other, to love each other, to be open to life. So we tried to design the programming to, again, allow the gospel, the message of Christ on family and the marriage, to shed light on all the many and varied different situations that families and married couples find themselves in.
Your Excellency, there are so many families that are really trying hard but can't seem to live up to the model of a Catholic family, mom and dad together for years raising their children. What advice do you have for them?
First thing I would tell them is just have courage, not to give up, not to give in to the temptation to despair or to think that it's impossible to live the Christian life as a married couple and as a family. I'd certainly encourage them to seek the support of the church in their parish communities. If they need the assistance of their parish priest or other married couples in the parish community, and to never lose faith in what God has done for us in His beloved Son Jesus, and to recommit themselves, renew their faith in what it is that He can make possible in each one of us through the power of His death and resurrection. But certainly words of encouragement, have them to encourage them not to lose hope and not to listen to the voice of those voices of our age or the voice of the devil that would try to convince them that it's an impossible idea and can't really be accomplished. So it's best just to walk away from it. So certainly words of encouragement in that area.
Good, solid direction. The auxiliary bishop for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, Your Excellency Bishop John McIntyre.
You're welcome. Thank you, Brian. God bless.
Coming up, Pope Francis encourages pastors to talk less and listen more.
It's one of America's most iconic monuments, but did you know there's an anti-Catholic episode inside the history of those walls? I'm Jason Calvi. I'll tell you more coming up.
In confession, Jesus welcomes us with all our sinfulness to give us a new heart capable of loving as He loves. A message from Pope Francis on his Twitter account today. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. The Catholic Church in the U.S. observes the 4th annual Fortnight for Freedom, 2 weeks set aside to celebrate religious freedom and pray for its defense. As Jason Calvi explains, Catholics have faced bias throughout U.S. history.
A stone's throw from the White House, the Washington Monument soars 555 feet. Construction began in 1848. Organizers asked foreign governments to donate stones to place inside. Pope Pius IX sent one in 1853.
It was engraved as Rome to America. And some of those folks that were not as kind to Catholics at that time saw this as almost a kind of announcement that Rome was going to be taking over America.
The Holy Father's stone never made it inside the monument. Father Andres blames an anti-Catholic political party at the time known as the Know-Nothings.
And they actually hatched a plan to steal the stone, which they did, and then they actually took it over towards the Potomac, broke it into a lot of pieces, and threw it to the bottom.
Finally, in the 1980s, a priest asked the National Park Service if he could place a replica of the stone inside, and they said yes.
The late Father James Grant of the Diocese of Spokane, Washington, spearheaded the replacement in 1982.
It's a lesson for us to have strength too, because our ancestors certainly endured a society that was not always welcoming towards them.
A part of American history often forgotten, but still significant. Jason Calvi, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Jason. Pope Francis, during his homily today, emphasizes the need for priests to listen. The Holy Father saying worldly pastors talk too much and listen too little. Francis says what they are lacking is, quote, the rock of the Word of God. He uses the example of Mother Teresa, listening in silence and accomplishing much. Well, some survivors of the Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev say his remorse is too little, too late. At his Wednesday sentencing, Tsarnaev apologized for the lives that were taken in the 2012 terror attack. Catherine Zeltner reports.
Sentenced to die by execution, marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev at last broke his silence, telling the court in his words, "The bombing, which I am guilty of, if there's any lingering doubt about that, let there be no more. I did do it, along with my brother." Dressed in a dark suit and speaking in a heavily affected accent, the 21-year-old convicted terrorist apologized, saying, "I am sorry for the lives I have taken, the suffering I have caused, the damage I have done." To the prosecutors and some victims, his words rang hollow.
I regret having ever wanted to hear him speak, because what he said showed no remorse, no regret, and no empathy for what he's done to our lives.
What I was struck more was by what he didn't say. He didn't renounce terrorism. He didn't renounce violent extremism.
Amputee Rebecca Gregory spoke defiantly to Tsarnaev. Referring to him in his holding cell, Gregory smiled. "It's so funny that you smirk and flip off the camera," she said. "I feel that's what we're doing to you. When people think back, they won't remember your name or your brother's." Some victims forgave Tsarnaev. Others, like the parents of 8-year-old Martin Richard, choosing to honor their child's short life by rejecting Tsarnaev's message. He chose hate. He chose destruction. He chose death. We choose love. We choose peace. Catherine Seltner, EWTN News Nightly.
Up next, the world remembers a humble sister who continued Mother Teresa's work. And these fragile sculptures that survived a church fire decades ago in Ukraine are in danger of neglect. Jesus said to his disciples, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven." From today's Gospel according to St. Matthew in chapter 7. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday evening, the 25th of June. Mother Teresa's successor as head of the Missionaries of Charity is buried this week in India. Wyatt Goolsby reports that Sister Nirmala Joshi earns praise for a life of service to the poor.
On Wednesday, the Missionaries of Charity laid to rest their former Superior General, Sister Nirmala Joshi. Religious sisters and others walked beside her coffin during the funeral procession in Calcutta, India. Nirmala succeeded Mother Teresa as the head of the order in 1997, but due to ill health, she stepped down in 2009. She died at a Missionaries of Charity home in the early hours Tuesday. After news of her death, the Archbishop of Calcutta, Thomas D'Souza, praised her work, saying, "She never talked about herself. She was more about how to support peace, to be helpful to the poor. She had a deep union with Jesus, and she was a gentle apostle of peace until the end." Nirmala herself was born into a Hindu family in Nepal, but was educated in Christian schools and inspired by Mother Teresa's humanitarian work. She was baptized into the church and joined the order, taking the name Nirmala, which means purity in Sanskrit. She actively supported Mother Teresa's cause for beatification. Since her death, social media has been flooded with messages and tributes. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted, "Sister Nirmala's life was devoted to service, caring for the poor and underprivileged. Saddened by her demise. May her soul rest in peace." Wyatt Goolsby, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Wyatt. If you want to see works by the artist known as Ukraine's Michelangelo, you'll have to make a pilgrimage. Sculptures by Johann Georg Pinsel are so fragile they can no longer be moved. Many of Pinsel's works were damaged in a fire that destroyed a Western Ukraine church in the 1970s. Pieces that survived the blaze are on display in an art gallery that's in need of renovation, so they could fall into disrepair. The 18th century artist's dynamic Baroque style, his subjects frozen in time, has captivated art lovers from Prague to Paris. Until tomorrow, for our EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. We leave you tonight remembering Missionaries of Charity Sister Nirmala Joshi. May her soul and the souls of all the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace.